Things might not feel easy right now. If you're like most people, especially those who tend to be a bit hard on themselves, the idea of loving yourself might even feel out of reach. Or maybe it feels like something that other people are just naturally better at. But loving yourself isn't reserved for some special group of people. It's something you deserve. You are worthy of love and acceptance, exactly as you are. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, but today. You are enough. You deserve love and respect. You are capable of growth and transformation. Self-love is within your reach, right here, right now, and I'm going to show you a few small yet powerful ways to get started. So if you're ready, even just a little bit ready, let's explore 7 ways you can start loving yourself today. No massive leaps, no pressure to transform overnight, just a few gentle steps. By the end of this video, I hope you feel closer to seeing the worth that's already within you. The first simple yet powerful way to start loving yourself today is to begin speaking kindly to yourself. I know it sounds simple, speaking kindly to yourself, but think about it for a moment. How often do you catch yourself speaking rather unkindly to yourself, almost automatically? Especially in moments when you're feeling down, frustrated, or just a bit off your game. If someone you care deeply about came to you saying those same things about themselves, what would you say? You'd probably feel an immediate urge to remind them of all the good you see in them. You tell them they're being too hard on themselves, that nobody gets everything right all the time, and that they're more capable and worthy than they realize. It would likely hurt just to hear them tearing themselves down, wouldn't it? And yet, when it comes to our own self-talk, we somehow let ourselves get away with words we'd never dream of saying to anyone else. Starting to speak kindly to yourself doesn't mean forcing false positivity or pretending to believe things you don't. It's about creating space for gentleness and honesty, without the harsh judgment that often sneaks into our inner dialogue. Imagine if, just once, you could take a deep breath and give yourself permission to see things as they are, without piling on self-criticism. Maybe you didn't handle something perfectly. Does that really mean you're a failure? Or is it just a moment of learning, a chance to improve, the same way it would be for anyone else? We're often quick to judge ourselves by standards we'd never hold others to, expecting constant perfection and feeling defeated when we fall short. But if you can approach yourself with the same compassion you'd show a friend, those little mistakes or imperfections start to feel less defining and more like natural parts of growth. Being kind to yourself doesn't mean forcing positivity that doesn't feel genuine. Start by simply being fair. You don't have to jump to, "I'm amazing," or "I love everything about myself," if that doesn't feel true yet. Instead, try acknowledging the parts of yourself that are real and neutral, without adding negativity. If you catch yourself thinking, "I'm terrible at this," try replacing it with, "I'm still learning this," or "I didn't get it right this time, but I'm trying." Fairness gives you a more balanced perspective, helping you avoid extremes of self-blame and self-praise. Speaking to yourself fairly means telling yourself the truth. The truth that you're a work in progress, human, doing your best, even if your best isn't always perfect. The way you speak to yourself truly matters, more than you might realize. Your words shape how you see yourself, how you feel, and even how you carry yourself through life. If your inner dialogue is filled with harshness, those critical voices will eventually shape your self-view and become a weight you carry every day. But by choosing kindness, by giving yourself gentle, fair words, you begin to build a foundation of self-respect and resilience. You start to see that you're worthy of encouragement, worthy of forgiveness, and most importantly, worthy of love, even from yourself. Next, celebrate your little wins. Maybe you didn't hit every goal today, and right now, that might be all you see. The things left undone, the tasks you didn't complete, or the goals that feel just out of reach. It's so easy to focus on those missed marks, to feel like the day was wasted because you didn't accomplish everything you set out to do. But what if, just for a moment, you took a step back and looked closer? If you dig beneath what you didn't achieve, you'll find small victories hidden in your day. They might be so small you barely notice them, but that doesn't make them any less real or meaningful. Maybe you managed to get out of bed, even though every part of you just wanted to stay under the covers. That might seem like the bare minimum, hardly worthy of celebration. But on some days, simply getting up is an act of resilience, a choice to move forward when staying still would have been easier. Or maybe you started your day with a glass of water, choosing hydration over diving into caffeine or skipping breakfast. That's a small act of self-care, however minor it might seem. These tiny acts, these little moments, are part of a quiet pattern of looking after yourself, even when it doesn't feel like a big deal. Self-love isn't always about grand gestures or major milestones. It's built bit by bit through smaller actions we often overlook. When you start to notice them, these moments reveal a picture of someone who, perhaps unconsciously, is learning to care for themselves. Drinking water, taking a walk, finishing a chapter of a book, or even just taking a few deep breaths when feeling overwhelmed, each of these is a small victory that deserves recognition. And while they may seem trivial alone, these moments aren't isolated. Each one adds up over time, layering to create a sense of worth and self-compassion. Imagine if you gave yourself permission to celebrate these little wins, to feel pride, or even a quiet satisfaction in the fact that, no matter how small, you showed up for yourself in some way today. By celebrating them, you're telling yourself that your efforts matter, that you don't have to be perfect or accomplish everything to be worthy of appreciation. Even on days when you feel like you're barely making it through, the smallest effort deserves acknowledgement. Over time, this simple practice of noticing and celebrating your small victories can shift your focus from what you lack to what you've done, from what's missing to what's present. It might feel strange at first, even uncomfortable, to give yourself credit for things you usually take for granted. But this isn't about exaggerating or pretending your day was flawless. It's about building a foundation of self-respect that doesn't depend on huge achievements. These small celebrations help you develop a mindset where you're not only able to recognize the big wins, but also the smaller, more frequent ones that might have gone unnoticed. And as you keep doing this, you'll start to see a pattern emerge, one that shows you just how capable, resilient, and worthy of love you truly are. You'll begin to realize that you deserve kindness and encouragement, not just on days when everything goes perfectly, but every day, especially on those that feel imperfect. Celebrating these wins, however small, is a way of honoring your journey, of acknowledging that you're constantly showing up for yourself, and that alone is worth so much more than you might have thought. And speaking of celebrating small wins, please help us win a little by liking and subscribing to this channel. This act of kindness helps us create more content to empower, support, and uplift you on your self-love journey. Thank you for liking and subscribing. The third simple yet powerful way to love yourself is to stop comparing yourself to others. Letting go of comparisons is easier said than done, especially in a world where social media constantly reminds us of everything we think we're missing. Everywhere we look, we see people showcasing the highlights of their lives, the accomplishments, the new jobs, the big vacations, the perfect relationships. And before we know it, we start to believe that everyone else is living this flawless, exciting life while we're somehow stuck on the sidelines. But social media only shows a fraction of the picture. It's like peeking through a keyhole, seeing only what people want to reveal. Behind every perfect post is a real person, facing struggles, insecurities, and challenges, just like you. Their lives are theirs, shaped by their own experiences, decisions, and timing. And your life? It's uniquely, beautifully yours. It doesn't have to look like anyone else's, and it shouldn't. Every time we compare ourselves to someone else, we're essentially saying that their journey has more value than our own, that their story is somehow better. But that's not true. You are on a journey as one of a kind as your fingerprints. No one else has walked in your shoes, faced your struggles, or experienced your moments of triumph and growth. Each step you take is part of a path that belongs to you and only you. You don't have to run someone else's race. Life isn't a competition, and there's no finish line where everyone arrives at the same time or in the same way. Imagine watching a flower bloom. You wouldn't rush it or compare it to other flowers. You'd simply let it grow in its own time, appreciating it for what it is. The same goes for you. There is no set pace or schedule you have to follow. You're allowed to grow and evolve at your own speed, in your own way, and that's where your true worth lies. When you catch yourself feeling inadequate or wishing your life looked more like someone else's, try to remind yourself gently that comparison only robs you of the beauty and potential within your own story. You have gifts and strengths that are uniquely yours, things no one else could bring into the world in the way you can. By focusing on what others have or what they're doing, you risk overlooking the incredible things you have to offer right here, right now. So the next time you feel that familiar pang of envy or insecurity, remember that it's okay to let it go. It's okay to appreciate someone else's success without letting it take away from your own. Remind yourself that someone else's path doesn't take away from the value of your journey. It doesn't make your progress any less important. You're allowed to find joy in your own growth, in the small steps and quiet victories that make up your story. Because in the end, you'll realize that the only person worth comparing yourself to is the version of you from yesterday, the person who is trying, learning, and growing every day. That's where true fulfillment comes from. Fourth, allow yourself to say no. Saying no can feel uncomfortable, even a little painful. There's a part of us that fears we'll disappoint people or seem selfish, so we push ourselves to say yes even when it drains us. We think that by always being available and willing, we'll somehow prove our worth or earn the love and approval we seek. But when you keep saying yes to everyone else and no to yourself, you're sending a message that your own needs don't matter. You're telling yourself, even if unconsciously, that everyone else's happiness and comfort are more important than your own. But you matter too. Your well-being, your energy, and your happiness deserve just as much respect and care as anyone else's. Learning to say no isn't being difficult or selfish. It's recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. Every time you give away a yes that you didn't really mean, you're chipping away at your own energy and peace. You're making sacrifices, often little by little, until one day you might wake up feeling completely depleted, like there's nothing left of yourself to give. And that's not fair to you. You deserve to feel whole and content, with time and energy to pursue the things that genuinely matter to you. Allowing yourself to say no is a step toward honoring that. Saying no is a way of setting healthy boundaries, and boundaries are essential to self-love. When you set a boundary, you're affirming to yourself and others that you have limits, and those limits deserve respect. You're acknowledging that you have a right to protect your energy, your time, and your peace. And while it might feel uncomfortable at first, remember that practicing saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you someone who values their well-being. It makes you someone who respects their own boundaries, which is a powerful and necessary act of self-care. A small no today might feel insignificant, but it's a powerful statement of self-respect. It's a way of telling yourself that your needs are valid, that your comfort is important, and that you're worthy of the same kindness and consideration you so often extend to others. And with each no that you feel comfortable giving, you're carving out a little more space for yourself, creating a life that aligns with what truly matters to you. This isn't pushing people away. It's giving yourself the freedom to focus on the things that genuinely nurture you. Imagine what it would feel like to have more energy because you weren't stretched so thin by constant obligations. Imagine being able to dedicate time to the things that make you feel alive, to the people and experiences that bring you joy, without guilt or resentment. Saying no allows you to do that. It creates a life where you're present, fulfilled, and genuinely happy. And as you get more comfortable with it, you'll start to realize that the people who truly care about you will understand. They'll appreciate your honesty and see the strength it takes to honor yourself in this way. Allowing yourself to say no is one of the most loving things you can do for yourself. It might be challenging at first, but it's worth it. Because every time you say no when you need to, you're choosing yourself. You're choosing to protect your peace, to nurture your growth, and to live in a way that respects your boundaries. That is self-love in action, and it's something you absolutely deserve. The fifth simple yet powerful way to start loving yourself today is to spend time doing things you love. Life can get so overwhelming with responsibilities piling up and schedules filling in so quickly that we often forget to pause and ask ourselves a simple question: what do I actually enjoy doing? We get so wrapped up in the things we have to do that we lose sight of the things we want to do, the things that make us feel alive and joyful. But spending time on things you genuinely love is one of the most natural, nourishing ways to show yourself love. It's a way of giving back to yourself, filling up your emotional and mental reserves, and reminding yourself that your happiness is important. Think back to the last time you lost yourself in something you loved. Maybe you were reading a book that pulled you into another world, cooking a meal that filled your kitchen with warmth and delicious smells, or just going for a walk with your favorite playlist on. In that moment, you were present. You weren't worried about your to-do list or the things you should be doing. You were just there, enjoying, feeling connected to yourself in a way that sometimes gets lost in the day-to-day rush. Those moments, however small, are powerful. They're pockets of joy that remind you of who you are, outside of obligations and expectations. Carving out time for the things you love doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It can be as simple as setting aside 15 minutes to read a few chapters of a book, spending a few moments tending to a hobby you cherish, or taking a short walk just to breathe and feel the world around you. These aren't trivial acts. They're moments that say, I matter. They reinforce the idea that you're worthy of enjoyment, that life isn't only about productivity and getting things done. You deserve peace, relaxation, and fulfillment just as much as anyone else. When you spend time doing things that make you happy, you're telling yourself that your joy is worth the investment. Even if it feels small or selfish at first, it's not. It's a form of self-respect. Every time you indulge in a passion or hobby, you're acknowledging that you deserve happiness, that you don't have to wait until everything else is done to prioritize yourself. And as you continue to honor those moments, you'll find they create a ripple effect, bringing a sense of balance and contentment that flows into other areas of your life. Picture a life where, despite the busyness, you regularly took time for things that bring you joy. Think of how much lighter you'd feel, how much more energized and capable you'd be. When you give yourself permission to enjoy life's simple pleasures, you become more present and resilient in everything else. It's like planting seeds of happiness that grow into a foundation of self-love and contentment, reminding you that you're worth it and that you don't have to earn the right to be happy. So go ahead and explore what makes you feel fulfilled. Reconnect with those parts of yourself that may not have had a voice in a while. Whether it's through art, nature, music, or something entirely unique to you, each moment you spend on something you love is a way of reinforcing your value, of saying, I am deserving of joy, and I am willing to make space for it. You don't have to do it all at once, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something that reminds you of what it feels like to be alive, to be you. When you prioritize activities that bring you joy, you're doing more than just filling your time. You're reclaiming it. You're choosing to make your happiness and well-being a priority, a fundamental part of your life. Over time, these small moments of joy build a life where you feel more connected to yourself, more at peace, and ultimately more loved by the one person who matters most, you. Accept that you're not perfect, and that's perfectly okay. That's another powerful way to start loving yourself today. It's a truth that's hard to swallow sometimes. None of us are perfect. We all carry things we wish we could change, traits we'd love to smooth over, and moments we'd like to rewrite. It's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if only I were more like this, or when I finally fix that, I'll be happy. But life isn't about becoming this idealized version of ourselves where all our flaws magically disappear. It's about understanding that who we are, right here, right now, with all our so-called imperfections, is enough. And if we're always holding out for perfect before we allow ourselves to feel worthy of love, we'll be holding out forever. The world often tells us that to be loved, respected, or even accepted, we need to fit into some mold of perfect. But picture a life where we let go of that idea, where we stop seeing our quirks and differences as things to fix and instead start viewing them as pieces of the puzzle that make us uniquely ourselves. Those little quirks, the things that might feel awkward or even unlovable, are the very things that make you you. They give you character, make you relatable, and remind you that, like everyone else, you're human. And there's something so profoundly beautiful about that. Your imperfections don't make you less. They make you real. Self-love isn't about reaching a point where you're flawless. It's about making peace with the person you are, embracing both your strengths and shortcomings. It's realizing that you don't need to change who you are to be worthy of love, because true self-love means accepting yourself as a whole. You see, it's easy to love ourselves when everything is going well, when we're hitting all the marks. But real self-love, the kind that endures, is about standing by ourselves, even on the messy days when we feel anything but perfect. Perfection isn't what makes anyone lovable. In fact, it's often our imperfections that draw people closer to us. They make us approachable, relatable, and grounded. They remind others that we too have struggles, that we too are figuring things out as we go. And perhaps most importantly, accepting our imperfections gives us a sense of freedom. Freedom from constantly striving to measure up to some impossible standard. Freedom from the weight of trying to be something we're not. Imagine if, instead of fighting against our flaws, we chose to treat them with compassion. Imagine if we looked at ourselves with the same kindness we'd offer to a friend who's struggling. When we allow ourselves this grace, we begin to see that being human isn't about perfection. It's about growth, resilience, and authenticity. It's learning and unlearning. About finding the courage to show up as we are without hiding behind a mask of who we think we should be. So let's make a pact. Let's stop waiting for some future version of ourselves to feel worthy of love. Let's stop putting off self-acceptance until we think we're good enough. Because you are already good enough. Your value doesn't depend on how close you are to perfect. It depends on how much you're willing to accept and embrace the person you are today. Loving yourself as you are, flaws and all, isn't settling. It's recognizing that you're whole, even with the pieces that feel imperfect. And that is where true self-love begins. You don't have to wait to be perfect to be happy, to feel peace, or to know that you're deserving of love. You can start that journey now, exactly as you are, because the courage to accept yourself, to look in the mirror and say, "This is me, and I am enough," that's real self-love. And in the end, that's far more powerful and lasting than any idea of perfection could ever be. Lastly, for this video, the 7th simple yet powerful way to start loving yourself today is to surround yourself with positive influences. The company you keep and the influences you invite into your life can make a world of difference. It's true that we don't always get to choose every person we interact with or every situation we're part of, but we do have some say in who, and what we surround ourselves with. And when you're focused on nurturing self-love, one of the most supportive things you can do is make choices that consistently bring positivity and encouragement into your daily life. Start by paying attention to how certain people make you feel. Are there individuals who uplift you, who make you feel seen, valued, and appreciated? These are the ones to draw closer. On the other hand, if there are people in your life who constantly drain your energy or make you doubt yourself, it's worth considering whether you need to set some boundaries. This isn't about shutting people out or creating conflict. It's about being mindful of your energy. When you're around people who genuinely care about you, who want to see you thrive, you naturally feel more at ease, more yourself. Their presence reinforces your sense of worth and reminds you that you're deserving of love and respect just as you are. It's not just the people we're physically around, though. What you choose to consume, books, shows, podcasts, social media, also shapes your mindset. Think about the kind of content you let into your space. Are you reading things that inspire you, or are you spending time on content that leaves you feeling inadequate? Are you watching shows that feed your curiosity and growth, or are you letting things take up your time that bring you down? You have the power to create a digital space that acts as a positive influence, filling your mind with messages that support your self-worth rather than tear it down. You'd be surprised how impactful these small choices can be. When you consistently choose to surround yourself with messages and people that affirm your value, it starts to sink in, subtly reshaping the way you see yourself. It's like building a protective layer around your self-esteem, a reminder that you don't need to change who you are to be worthy of love and respect. And the beauty of this process is that it doesn't have to be drastic. Start small. Maybe follow a few positive accounts on social media, read a book that lifts your spirit, or spend time with a friend who makes you laugh and feels like sunshine. This is about creating an environment where you can thrive, one that's supportive and aligned with your values. It's realizing that you're not just passively existing in your world, you have the agency to make it a space that feels good for you. When you make a habit of surrounding yourself with positive influences, you'll find your perspective on yourself starts to shift. You'll begin to internalize the kindness, the encouragement, the love that surrounds you, helping you build a stronger foundation of self-love. Your daily life becomes a reflection of what you're aiming to cultivate within yourself. Each small choice, who you spend time with, what you read, what you listen to, sends a signal to yourself that you are worth the effort, worth the kindness, worth the support. Little by little, these choices add up, creating an environment that nurtures your self-love journey. You deserve to be surrounded by positivity and encouragement, by people and messages that remind you of your worth, that bring out the best in you. So, be intentional. Build a space around yourself that mirrors the love and respect you're growing within, and watch how it strengthens the love you have for yourself. You made it this far. Please like and subscribe to this channel to encourage us to create even more awesome content. You won't miss out on future moments to connect with yourself. That's it. 7 small ways to start loving yourself today. You don't have to tackle everything at once. Even taking just one of these steps is a move toward valuing yourself. Every step, no matter how small, counts. You're not alone on this journey, and as much as I'm talking to you, I'm here with you too. We're all learning, growing, and loving a little more each day. So go easy on yourself. Take a breath. Try just one of these tips and give yourself permission to see the good in who you are, right here, right now. You've got this.
Like and subscribe.